You wake up tired, not because you're weak, but because you've been carrying potential without direction. You know you're capable of more. You feel it. Yet your days blur together, full of intention, but empty of proof. That quiet frustration follows you. Not loud enough to scream, not sharp enough to force change, just heavy enough to drain you. You're not failing. You're drifting. And drifting is the most dangerous place a capable person can live. Somewhere along the way, you were sold a lie about winning. That it's loud, that it's dramatic, that it belongs to the lucky, the gifted, the chosen few who woke up ahead. You were told winning looks like domination, applause, or overnight success. But that lie keeps you stuck chasing moments instead of building momentum. Real winning doesn't shout. It whispers. It's built in silence, in repetition, in choices so small they feel insignificant until they aren't. Right now, your life might feel scattered. Too many tabs open in your mind. Too many starts without finishes. You try to motivate yourself with bursts of intensity, only to crash back into old habits. Chaos replaces clarity. Comfort replaces progress. And you begin questioning yourself instead of your systems. That's not a character flaw. That's a misunderstanding of how winning actually works. Winning is psychological. It's not about how you feel in peak moments. It's about who you are when no one is watching. It's about the standards you keep when motivation disappears. The world rewards visible outcomes, but outcomes are lagging indicators. The real battle happens earlier, quieter, inside your routines and your self-talk. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your daily identity. Most people wait. They wait to feel ready. They wait for confidence. They wait for the perfect plan. While they wait, time keeps moving and potential keeps expiring. Drifting feels safe because it demands nothing. Deciding feels heavy because it demands everything. But the moment you decide, truly decide, the noise begins to fade. Clarity doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from choosing and moving. You don't need more hype. You don't need another motivational spike that disappears by tomorrow morning. You need discipline that outlasts emotion. You need awareness that catches you before old patterns take over. You need repetition so boring it feels beneath you, yet powerful enough to rebuild you. Winning is not a personality trait. It's a practice. And practices compound. Think about the days you felt strongest, not the days you celebrated, but the days you showed up despite resistance. Those days built something in you. Proof, evidence, quiet confidence. Now think about the days you let yourself slide. Nothing exploded, but something eroded. Trust, momentum, identity. Winning and losing rarely announce themselves. They accumulate. You are not broken. You are untrained. No one taught you how to win a day, so you tried to win a life all at once. No one showed you that consistency beats intensity, so you burned yourself out chasing extremes. This is where that changes. This is where you stop demanding perfection and start demanding follow-through. Daily follow-through. Winning daily doesn't mean every day feels good. It means every day has intention. It means you keep promises to yourself even when no one is counting, especially when no one is counting, because that's where identity is forged. Not in outcomes, but in agreements honored under pressure. You are becoming the kind of person who wins quietly, who doesn't need validation to stay disciplined, who doesn't wait for the perfect mood to take the next step. Each small win rewires your mind. Each completed action tells your nervous system, I am reliable. And reliability becomes confidence. Confidence becomes momentum. Momentum becomes power. This is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters repeatedly. It's about trading chaos for structure, noise for focus, excuses for execution. When you win the small moments, the big moments stop feeling overwhelming. When you control your mornings, your mindset, your actions, the rest of life begins to follow. You don't need to be louder. You need to be steadier. You don't need to dominate others. You need to master yourself. Winning isn't loud. It's daily. And if you're willing to commit to that truth, everything that follows will finally make sense. Chapter 1. What winners know that losers don't. Most people think winning is about moments. Big moments. Loud moments. The kind you post, celebrate, and point to for proof. But that belief is exactly what keeps you losing quietly. Because while you're waiting for a breakthrough, winners are stacking days. You feel behind not because you lack ability, but because you've been measuring success wrong. Winning isn't an event, it's a direction. And the direction you walk daily matters more than the speed you sprint occasionally. This chapter will strip away the illusion and show you what real winners know, practice, and protect. That knowledge changes everything forever. Losers chase intensity. Winners commit to consistency. Losers want results now. Winners design systems that pay later. This isn't about intelligence or talent. It's about time horizons. Short-term thinking feels exciting, but it robs you slowly. Long-term thinking feels boring, but it builds you relentlessly. When you choose comfort today, you steal from tomorrow. When you choose discipline today, tomorrow pays you back with interest. Winners understand this exchange deeply. They don't argue with it. They arrange their lives around it and let time work for them while others fight reality and lose daily battles they never needed to fight. Most people live for emotional relief. Winners live for alignment. If it feels good now, they do it. If it feels hard, they avoid it. That pattern quietly trains weakness. Winners reverse the rule. They don't ask how something feels. They ask who it builds. They tolerate short-term discomfort because they value long-term strength. They understand that emotions are temporary, but identity is permanent. Every time you choose growth over relief, you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. Those votes accumulate, whether you acknowledge them or not. That accumulation defines winners long before results appear at all. Winners know something uncomfortable. Motivation is unreliable. Losers depend on it. Winners build systems that function without it. They don't wait to feel inspired to act. They act to create inspiration. This is why they progress while others stall. Systems remove decision fatigue. They make winning automatic. When behavior is structured, discipline becomes lighter. Losers rely on willpower and emotion. Winners rely on design, routine, and environment. One leaks energy, the other multiplies it daily. That difference compounds silently, shaping outcomes before effort is noticed by the world, watching too late again after years of unnoticed daily preparation and patience. Flashy shortcuts attract desperate minds. Winners avoid them. Quick wins promise speed, but demand sacrifice later. Consistency asks for patience, but rewards you permanently. Losers bounce between hacks, hoping something sticks. Winners commit to fundamentals and refine them endlessly. They understand mastery is boring to watch, but powerful to live. While others jump strategies, winners deepen execution. While others restart, winners continue. This is why they seem lucky years later. Luck follows preparation that refused to quit even when progress was invisible and validation completely absent during long seasons of quiet, disciplined repetition that built undeniable inner authority and certainty. Winners play infinite games. Losers play finite ones. Finite thinking asks, who's ahead today? Infinite thinking asks, who am I becoming over time? Comparison exhausts you. Growth fortifies you. When you chase others, you fracture focus. When you chase standards, you sharpen it. Winners compete with yesterday, not with crowds. They measure progress internally, not socially. This protects their energy and preserves momentum. Attention is finite. Winners guard it fiercely because they understand what attention feeds eventually grows, whether that growth serves them or slowly destroys them through distraction, comparison, and unnecessary emotional consumption that weakens long-term strategic self-command daily. Winners think in identity, not outcomes. Losers chase results and abandon the process when results lag. Identity-based thinking asks, what would a disciplined person do today? What would a focused person choose now? When action is tied to identity, consistency follows naturally. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop needing motivation. You act because that's who you are. This shift changes everything. Winning stops being something you attempt. It becomes something you express, repeatedly, quietly, without drama, through standards upheld even when feelings argue otherwise, and discipline becomes self-respect rather than forced obedience, driving behavior effortlessly forward every day, consistently. Losers try to win days. Winners win systems. A good day without structure changes nothing. A structured day compounds even when it's average. Winners obsess over repeatability. Can this be done again tomorrow? Can it survive stress, boredom, and pressure? If not, it's noise. This is why winners appear calm. They're not guessing. They're executing known patterns. Chaos creates anxiety. Systems create peace. And peace allows focus to stay sharp when challenges inevitably arrive because their responses are trained before adversity demands decisions, while others panic, react emotionally, and abandon structure under pressure. They were never prepared for daily training. Winners accept delayed gratification as a lifestyle, not a tactic. They train patience like a muscle. Losers treat patience as temporary suffering. Winners see it as strength development. They delay pleasure to deepen capability. They postpone comfort to expand capacity. Over time, this creates an edge that feels unfair to outsiders. But nothing about it was accidental. It was chosen daily, quietly, repeatedly. This is the hidden advantage no shortcut can steal, because it's embedded in character, not circumstances, which makes it portable, durable, and immune to volatility across seasons of change, pressure, and uncertainty that breaks undisciplined competitors eventually. At the core, winners understand one truth: you don't try to win. You build someone who wins. Trying is emotional. Building is structural. Trying depends on mood. Building depends on commitment. When you stop asking, "Can I win today?" and start asking, "Who must I become daily?" everything shifts. Pressure drops. Clarity rises. Progress stabilizes. This chapter isn't asking you to outperform others. It's inviting you to outgrow your old patterns and prepare your mind for rewiring. Because the next step demands a deeper mental operating system capable of sustaining winning without conscious effort through identity, belief, and internal discipline. Small wins are invisible to people chasing applause. Winners chase them anyway. They understand compounding obeys no emotion. One disciplined action today seems meaningless alone, but repeated, it bends your future. Losers underestimate small actions because they crave dramatic change. Winners respect them because they understand math and psychology. Consistency changes self-image first, results second. Each completed promise strengthens trust with yourself. Over time, that trust becomes unbreakable confidence. This is how ordinary people build extraordinary lives without ever feeling extraordinary during the process of disciplined, often uncomfortable personal evolution that rewires identity long before outcomes appear to others externally. Losers need external proof to keep going. Winners generate internal proof daily. A workout finished, a promise kept, a distraction resisted. These moments seem small, but they stack identity evidence. You begin to see yourself differently, stronger, more reliable, less negotiable. This internal shift is the real reward. External success eventually follows, but it's secondary. Winners are loyal to the process, not addicted to praise. They know applause fades, but self-respect compounds. And they choose the quieter reward every single time because it builds something no one can take away regardless of market, mood, or outside validation or circumstances changing. Winners are patient with results, but ruthless with standards. They don't panic when progress is slow. They panic when discipline slips. Losers reverse this. They relax standards and demand outcomes. That inversion guarantees frustration. Standards are controllable. Outcomes are delayed. Winners stay focused on what they can execute today. They let results catch up later. This creates emotional stability. You stop riding highs and lows. You become grounded, stable, dangerous in the best way. Because nothing shakes someone anchored in daily execution over time, pressure becomes familiar rather than threatening, and confidence grows without needing external reassurance or applause again. This is why winners seem calm in chaos. They've already won today, not publicly, privately. They kept their word. They executed their standards. They moved forward while others waited. This chapter isn't about judging losers. It's about upgrading your framework. When you adopt how winners think, your behavior follows. And when behavior follows, results eventually obey. The next step is reprogramming the mind that drives those behaviors. Because once you see the framework, you're ready to install it permanently and begin the deeper work of reshaping beliefs that silently govern choices, habits, and daily self-command without resistance, excuses, or confusion. Chapter 2. Reprogramming your mental operating system. You don't sabotage your life by accident. You do it by default. Not because you're broken, but because your mind is running on old code you never chose. Patterns written years ago. Beliefs absorbed unconsciously. Scripts installed by repetition, emotion, and experience. And until now, you've been living inside those programs, reacting instead of deciding. You feel frustrated because you're fighting outcomes without ever touching the source. This chapter is where you stop wrestling symptoms and start rewriting the system. Every action you take is preceded by a thought. Every thought is rooted in a belief, and most of your beliefs are invisible to you. That's the danger. You don't question them because they feel like facts. This is just how I am. I always lose momentum. I can't stay consistent. These aren't truths, they're programs. and programs run automatically until interrupted. Winners don't have better luck. They have better internal software. They upgraded what runs their decisions. Self-sabotage isn't self-hatred. It's self-protection based on outdated assumptions. Your mind is designed to keep you safe, not strong. It avoids discomfort, uncertainty, and effort because those once signaled danger. But growth now demands the very things your mind resists. So it creates friction, excuses, distraction, doubt, not to harm you, but to keep you familiar. The problem is familiarity keeps you small. Winners recognize this and re-educate their minds deliberately. Beliefs act like filters. They determine what you notice, what you ignore, and how you interpret events. Two people face the same challenge. One sees threat, the other sees training. One retreats, the other adapts. The difference isn't circumstance, it's belief. When you believe effort leads to failure, you avoid effort. When you believe effort builds strength, you lean in. Behavior always obeys belief. If you want new actions, you must install new beliefs first. Most people try to change behavior directly. They force habits. They rely on discipline alone. It works briefly, then collapses. Why? Because the belief underneath hasn't changed. The mind resists what contradicts its identity. If you believe you're inconsistent, consistency feels foreign. If you believe you're disciplined, discipline feels natural. Identity determines effort. This is why reprogramming matters more than motivation. You're not here to push harder. You're here to think differently. Reprogramming starts with awareness. You must catch the thought before it becomes truth. The moment you hesitate, there's a sentence running in your head. Listen to it. Is it empowering or limiting? Is it choice or excuse? You don't need to judge it. You need to expose it. Awareness creates space. Space creates choice. Choice creates power. The moment you see a thought clearly, it loses authority. You stop being possessed by it. You become the operator again. Your brain believes what you repeat with emotion. That's how programming works. The stories you tell yourself daily become instructions. If you repeat weakness, you train weakness. If you repeat strength, you train strength. This isn't positive thinking, it's precision thinking. You're not lying to yourself, you're selecting better instructions. Winners don't say, everything is easy. They say, I can handle difficulty. One avoids reality, the other dominates it. Reframing is the skill of changing meaning without changing facts. The event stays the same. The interpretation shifts. Failure becomes feedback. Pressure becomes preparation. Discomfort becomes proof of growth. This single skill separates those who break from those who build. Life doesn't become easier. You become more capable, and capability changes everything. When your mind interprets challenge as training, resistance drops. You move faster. You recover quicker. You stay engaged. Your mental operating system must support who you're becoming, not who you were. That requires repetition, not once, not occasionally, daily. New beliefs are fragile at first. Old ones are reinforced by years. You don't delete old code. You overwrite it with stronger execution. Every time you act in alignment with the new belief, you weaken the old one. Action is the installer. Thought sets the direction. Behavior confirms the update. Winners audit their thinking like engineers. They ask, does this belief produce power or paralysis? If it produces paralysis, it's removed. Not emotionally. Strategically. They don't argue with their thoughts. They replace them. I don't feel like it becomes I do it anyway. I'm behind becomes I'm building. "This is hard" becomes, "This is sharpening me." Over time, these replacements become automatic. That's reprogramming. Your environment reinforces your software. What you consume, who you listen to, how you start your day. Inputs shape thoughts. Thoughts shape actions. Winners are ruthless about inputs because they understand contamination spreads silently. They limit noise. They choose signal. They feed their mind what aligns with their direction. You cannot think powerfully while consuming weakness. You cannot build focus while drowning in distraction. Reprogramming requires clean inputs. There will be resistance. Your old identity will fight for survival. Doubt will sound convincing. Comfort will negotiate. This is normal. It's proof the change is working. You're interrupting an automatic system. The mind resists updates at first. Stay steady. Don't argue. Execute. Consistent action silences resistance faster than debate ever will. When results begin to align, the mind follows. Proof converts belief permanently. Control doesn't come from eliminating negative thoughts. It comes from choosing which thoughts you obey. You don't need a quiet mind. You need a directed one. Let thoughts appear. Select the ones that serve your standard. This is ownership. This is leadership. You are not your thoughts. You are the one deciding which thoughts become commands. That distinction is everything. As your operating system upgrades, frustration turns into focus. Confusion turns into clarity. You stop reacting and start responding. You feel grounded, capable, intentional. This isn't hype. It's architecture. You're building a mind that supports winning daily. And once the system is installed, the next battle becomes clear. Because the voice inside your head will either build you or break you, and it's time to take command of that voice next. Chapter 3. The Winner's Self-Talk. The most powerful conversation in your life is the one no one else can hear. It happens in seconds, quietly, constantly, shaping every decision before you're even aware you've made one. That voice inside your head has been running the show for years. Sometimes it motivates you, most times it questions you, and too often it limits you. Winners don't silence this voice, they train it. Because self-talk isn't commentary, it's command. Most people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they respect. They insult themselves. They doubt themselves. They rehearse failure in advance. I always mess this up. I'm not disciplined. I'll start tomorrow. These phrases feel harmless, even honest, but language becomes identity through repetition. What you say consistently becomes who you believe you are, and who you believe you are determines how you act when pressure arrives. Losers use victim language. They don't notice it, but it exposes them. Words like can't, stuck, unlucky, overwhelmed. These words outsource responsibility. They imply powerlessness. Winners eliminate this language aggressively, not because they deny difficulty, but because they refuse to surrender control. They don't say, I have to. They say, I choose to. They don't say, this happened to me. They say, this is something I'll handle. Ownership begins in language. Your inner dialogue is either a critic or a coach. The critic keeps score of mistakes. The coach focuses on adjustment. The critic says, you failed. The coach says, good, now we know. The critic attacks character. The coach corrects behavior. Winners still make mistakes. They just don't weaponize them against themselves. They extract lessons and move forward. This shift alone can double resilience without changing a single external circumstance. Every excuse starts as a sentence. I'm too tired. I don't have time. It won't matter anyway. These sentences feel factual, but they're negotiations. The mind is trying to avoid effort. Winners don't argue with excuses. They interrupt them. They replace them with commands. Start anyway. Do the minimum. One step. Command language bypasses emotion. It moves the body before doubt finishes speaking. Action silences excuses faster than reasoning ever could. The words you use shape your nervous system. Victim language triggers stress and collapse. Ownership language triggers focus and engagement. When you say, I can't handle this, your body believes you. When you say, I've handled worse, your posture changes. Your breathing changes. Your capacity expands. This isn't motivation. It's biology responding to instruction. Winners speak in ways that prime strength, not sympathy. Self-trust is built through consistency between words and actions. If your inner voice promises things you don't follow through on, trust erodes. That's why confidence collapses. Winners are careful with self-talk. They don't overpromise. They issue realistic commands and execute them. 5 minutes. 1 rep. Send the message. Each completed command restores trust. Over time, your voice carries authority because it's proven reliable. The goal is not positive self-talk. It's precise self-talk. Empty hype breaks under pressure. Precision holds. Winners don't say, I'm unstoppable. They say, I don't quit. They don't say, I'm fearless. They say, I act despite fear. These statements are grounded in behavior, not fantasy. They create alignment instead of delusion. Alignment is what creates confidence that survives difficulty. Your internal dialogue must match the standard you're building. If your standard is discipline, your language must reflect discipline. No dramatic complaints, no exaggerated suffering, no unnecessary narratives. Winners keep their internal language clean and direct. They state facts. They issue instructions. They move. Drama wastes energy. Clarity conserves it. This is why disciplined people appear calm. They're not arguing internally. They've simplified the conversation. Repetition turns language into instinct. At first, new self-talk feels forced, awkward, fake. That's normal. Old language has years of reinforcement. Stay consistent. Speak the new commands anyway. The mind adapts. Over time, the new voice becomes automatic. The critic weakens. The coach strengthens. Eventually, you don't need to think about it. You respond with clarity under pressure because you've trained your language daily. Winners don't seek comfort in their self-talk. They seek effectiveness. Sometimes the coach is gentle, sometimes direct, always honest. This is hard, but you can do hard things. You're tired, not incapable. Finish what you started. This balance is critical. Too harsh and you break trust. Too soft and you lose standards. Effective self-talk holds you accountable without attacking your worth. The moment doubt speaks, winners don't panic. They expect it. Doubt isn't an enemy. It's a signal you're approaching growth. The difference is response. Losers debate doubt. Winners override it. Not relevant. Move. Later. These phrases aren't emotional. They're functional. They keep momentum intact. Momentum is fragile. Language protects it. As your self-talk upgrades, something shifts. Decisions become faster. Hesitation shrinks. You feel supported internally instead of sabotaged. You stop needing external reassurance. You trust your process because your voice has proven dependable. This is the foundation of real confidence, not hype, not arrogance. Quiet certainty built through aligned language and action. From this point forward, your inner voice becomes an asset. It guides, it stabilizes, it sharpens. And as confidence begins to form, the next step is learning how to prove that confidence through action, because belief becomes unshakable only when tested. And that's where true confidence is built next. Chapter 4. Developing Unshakable Confidence. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build. And the reason most people never feel confident is because they're trying to feel it before they earn it. They want certainty without evidence, strength without exposure, approval without proof. That kind of confidence is fragile. It cracks the moment pressure arrives. Real confidence doesn't announce itself. It settles in quietly after repeated proof that you can be trusted with responsibility, discomfort, and challenge. Most people confuse confidence with bravado. They think loud equals strong. They think certainty means never doubting. But arrogance is loud because it's hollow. It needs validation to survive. True confidence is calm because it's backed by experience. Winners don't need to convince anyone. They've already convinced themselves through action. They've seen what they can handle. And that knowledge cannot be shaken by opinions, moods, or temporary setbacks. Fragile confidence is built on outcomes and applause. When things go well, it rises. When things go wrong, it collapses. That's why so many people feel confident one day and defeated the next. Their confidence is outsourced. Durable confidence is internal. It comes from competence, from knowing you can show up, adapt, and finish, even when conditions aren't ideal. This kind of confidence doesn't depend on winning every time. It depends on staying engaged every time. Competence is built through exposure. You don't become confident by avoiding what scares you. You become confident by surviving what once intimidated you. Every time you step into discomfort and don't quit, you collect evidence. Every difficult conversation, every hard workout, every focused hour when distraction tempted you. These moments stack quietly. They form a backbone. Over time, your nervous system learns, I can handle this. And that belief changes how you move through the world. Failure is not the opposite of confidence. Avoidance is. Failure proves you were brave enough to try. It proves you entered the arena. Winners don't romanticize failure, but they don't fear it either. They extract data and move forward. Each failure sharpens judgment. Each mistake refines strategy. Over time, failure becomes familiar, and familiarity removes fear. You stop hesitating because you trust your ability to recover. Most people wait until they feel confident to act. Winners act until confidence appears. This reversal is everything. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates learning. Learning creates competence. Competence creates confidence. Skip the action, and the chain breaks. You stay stuck thinking, preparing, waiting. Confidence never arrives because you never give it a reason to exist. Confidence is a reward, not a prerequisite. Unshakable confidence is rooted in standards. When you know how you operate, uncertainty loses power. You don't wonder how you'll respond under pressure because you've trained the response. Standards eliminate negotiation. They reduce decision fatigue. They turn discipline into habit. When your standards are clear, you trust yourself. And trust is the core of confidence, not belief. Trust earned through repetition. Winners don't measure confidence by emotion. They measure it by behavior. Did I do what I said I would do? Did I stay aligned under stress? Did I execute when it mattered? These questions matter more than how you felt. Feelings fluctuate, behavior compounds. When behavior becomes reliable, confidence stabilizes. You stop riding emotional highs and lows. You become steady, grounded, predictable in the best way. Approval-based confidence is addictive. Likes, praise, recognition. It feels good until it disappears. Then doubt rushes in. Winners break this dependency early. They learn to self-validate through execution. They respect themselves because they keep promises to themselves. That respect doesn't need an audience. It travels with them. It's present in silence. It shows up when no one is watching. That's why it lasts. Exposure builds confidence only when paired with reflection. Winners don't just experience difficulty, they process it. They ask, what did this teach me? How did I handle pressure? What can improve next time? This turns experience into wisdom. Wisdom turns into calm authority. You don't rush, you don't panic. You've been here before in different forms. Confidence grows because familiarity expands. There will be moments when confidence dips. That's normal. It doesn't mean you're regressing. It means you're stretching. New levels demand new evidence. Don't interpret discomfort as weakness. Interpret it as training. Every time confidence is challenged and you stay engaged, it rebuilds stronger. This cycle repeats. Stretch, struggle, stabilize. That's growth. Unshakable confidence is quiet certainty. It doesn't need to dominate. It doesn't need to prove. It simply shows up prepared, focused, willing. This confidence allows you to take responsibility without fear, to lead without ego, to stay disciplined without drama. It's the confidence of someone who knows their habits will carry them even when motivation fades. As you earn this confidence, something shifts. You stop rushing mornings. You stop reacting to the day. You want structure, control, intentional starts. Because confidence demands alignment, and alignment begins the moment you wake up. The next step is learning how to win the day before the day tries to win you. And that starts in the first hour. Chapter 5. The First Hour Advantage. The way you start your day is the way you live your life. Not symbolically, literally. The first hour decides whether you lead the day or spend it reacting. Most people don't lose their discipline in the afternoon. They lose it the moment they wake up without intention. They open their eyes and immediately give control away. To notifications, to noise, to urgency that isn't theirs. Winners don't do that. They understand one simple truth. Whoever controls the morning controls the mind. Reactive mornings create reactive lives. You wake up late. You rush. You scroll. You check messages that pull you into other people's priorities. Your nervous system spikes before your feet hit the floor. Chaos becomes normal. You tell yourself you'll regain focus later, but later never comes. The tone is set. The mind follows momentum, not intention. And once momentum is lost, the rest of the day becomes damage control instead of deliberate progress. Intentional mornings are different. Quiet, grounded, commanding. They don't depend on motivation. They rely on structure. Winners wake up knowing exactly how the first hour unfolds. There's no negotiation, no debate. The decision was made yesterday. This removes friction. It protects focus. It preserves willpower. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" they execute what's already decided. That's the power of routine. It frees the mind to perform instead of panic. The first hour is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things. Hydration before stimulation. Movement before consumption. Direction before distraction. These aren't preferences. They're principles. When you hydrate, your body wakes up. When you move, your nervous system aligns. When you choose direction early, your mind stops wandering. Each action sends a signal. I am in control. I am awake on purpose. Most people say they're not morning people. That's not true. They're just untrained. The body adapts quickly to consistency. What feels hard now becomes automatic later. Winners don't chase comfort. They build capacity. They understand the morning isn't about feeling good. It's about becoming effective. And effectiveness creates confidence that lasts far beyond the first hour. Mental priming is non-negotiable. Whatever you expose your mind to first becomes its filter. If you start with chaos, your thoughts scatter. If you start with clarity, your thoughts align. Winners choose their input carefully. Silence, breath, a written intention, a reminder of standards. This doesn't take long. It takes commitment. 5 minutes of direction beats an hour of distraction. The mind doesn't need volume. It needs focus. Planning the day early removes anxiety later. Uncertainty drains energy. Clarity restores it. Winners don't overload their lists. They identify priorities. 1 to 3 non-negotiables. That's it. Progress comes from completion, not accumulation. When you know what winning today looks like, distractions lose power. You're not guessing, you're executing. And execution builds momentum that carries you forward even when the day gets heavy. Discipline in the morning is self-respect in action. Every small promise you keep before the world demands anything from you reinforces trust. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That identity matters. Because identity drives behavior all day long. When you win the morning, you walk differently, you speak differently, you choose differently. The day feels lighter because you're already aligned. Chaos thrives in unstructured time. The morning is the most vulnerable window. That's why distractions target it aggressively. Notifications, news, other people's emergencies. Winners defend this hour fiercely, not out of selfishness, but out of strategy. You can't give what you don't have. Focus must be generated before it's spent. The morning is where it's created. Your morning ritual doesn't need to be complex. It needs to be consistent. Complexity creates excuses. Consistency creates results. Same wake time, same first actions, same sequence. Over time, the body anticipates discipline. Resistance fades. What once required effort becomes instinct. This is how winners reduce friction and increase output without burning out. You don't need to wake up earlier than everyone else. You need to wake up more intentionally than you used to. Even 30 focused minutes can change the trajectory of your day. The key is ownership. The moment you delay ownership, the day claims you. The moment you take it, everything slows down internally, even if the world speeds up externally. Winning the first hour doesn't guarantee a perfect day. It guarantees a prepared one. And preparation changes how you respond to stress. You're less reactive, more deliberate. Problems feel manageable because your nervous system isn't already overloaded. This is emotional regulation through structure. It's quiet power. As mornings become intentional, you begin noticing something deeper. Your energy improves, not because you're doing less, but because you're leaking less. Energy isn't just physical, it's cognitive and emotional. When your mind isn't scattered, energy returns. This realization opens the next level of mastery, because time management isn't the real problem. Energy management is, and that's where the next chapter begins. Chapter 6: Energy Management over Time Management. Burnout isn't caused by doing too much. It's caused by doing too much with too little energy. Most people think they're exhausted because they lack time, but time isn't what's draining them. It's friction, misalignment, constant cognitive switching. You don't feel tired because your schedule is full. You feel tired because your energy is leaking in every direction. Winners understand this early. They stop managing hours and start managing capacity. Busyness looks productive, but it's often just disguised avoidance. Endless tasks, constant notifications, back-to-back obligations that feel important but move nothing forward. This kind of movement drains energy without producing momentum. You're active, but not effective. Winners avoid this trap. They measure productivity by output, not activity. They ask one question repeatedly: does this generate energy or consume it? The answer shapes their decisions. Energy follows biology, not ambition. You can't will yourself past physiology forever. Ignore your rhythms long enough, and your body will collect payment. Winners respect their biology. They learn when they're sharp and when they're dull. They protect peak hours fiercely. Deep work happens when focus is highest, not when the calendar says so. Shallow tasks are pushed to low-energy windows. This alignment alone can double effectiveness without increasing effort. Most people treat all hours equally. Winners don't. They understand cognitive energy is finite. Every decision costs something. Every distraction taxes focus. When you spend your best energy on trivial tasks, you starve what matters. This creates frustration and self-doubt, not because you're incapable, but because you're misallocated. When you align your hardest work with your strongest hours, resistance drops and confidence rises naturally. Sleep is not optional, it's strategic. Winners don't glorify exhaustion. They protect recovery because they understand power requires restoration. Sleep sharpens judgment. It stabilizes emotion. It preserves discipline. Without it, everything becomes harder. You negotiate more. You quit earlier. You seek comfort faster. Protecting sleep isn't weakness. It's leadership over yourself. Food is fuel, not entertainment. What you consume becomes how you perform. Heavy, erratic eating crashes energy and clouds thinking. Winners simplify. They eat to sustain clarity, not chase pleasure. Consistency matters more than perfection. When energy stays stable, focus becomes predictable. Predictability creates confidence. You stop wondering if today will be a good day. You make it one through preparation. Movement restores energy instead of draining it. Long periods of stillness stagnate the mind. Winners use movement intentionally. Short walks, stretching, physical exertion that resets the nervous system. This isn't about fitness alone. It's about circulation, oxygen, and mental clarity. When the body moves, the mind follows. Energy returns because the system re-engages. Energy leaks through distraction. Every notification fragments attention. Every unnecessary conversation drains focus. Winners reduce noise aggressively. They create boundaries, not to isolate, but to preserve power. Focus is expensive to regain once broken. That's why they batch communication and protect deep work sessions. Silence becomes a weapon. In silence, energy consolidates instead of disperses. Emotional energy matters as much as physical. Unresolved frustration, lingering resentment, constant comparison. These drain you quietly. Winners process emotions quickly. They don't suppress them, but they don't dwell either. Reflection replaces rumination. Action replaces complaining. Emotional clarity frees energy for execution. When your internal state is clean, Performance improves without additional effort. Time management asks, how do I fit more in? Energy management asks, what deserves my best? That shift changes everything. You stop overcommitting. You stop saying yes out of guilt. You choose fewer priorities and execute them better. This creates momentum instead of exhaustion. Momentum feeds energy. Energy fuels action. The cycle reverses. Protecting energy requires standards. No late-night scrolling, no unnecessary meetings, no constant availability. These boundaries feel uncomfortable at first. Then they feel powerful. When energy stabilizes, discipline becomes easier. You're not fighting yourself all day, you're aligned. This alignment produces sustainable power, not short bursts followed by collapse. Winners don't chase hustle, they chase leverage. They rest with intention and work with intensity. They respect cycles, push, recover, repeat. This rhythm keeps them sharp, while others burn out chasing constant motion. Sustainable power always beats temporary intensity. As you reclaim energy, something shifts. Action feels lighter. Decisions come faster. You stop hesitating because your mind isn't depleted. This prepares you for the next level. Because once energy is protected, execution becomes inevitable. And that's where decisive action takes over next. Chapter 7. The Action Bias. Hesitation feels intelligent, but it's usually fear wearing a disguise. It sounds reasonable. It sounds cautious. It tells you to think more, plan more, wait a little longer. But while you're waiting, nothing changes. Momentum dies quietly in the space between intention and execution. Winners understand this. They don't worship thinking. They respect action. Because action is the only force that turns potential into reality. Overthinking is not depth. It's delay. It gives you the illusion of progress without the risk of movement. You replay scenarios. You imagine outcomes. You prepare endlessly. And all the while, your confidence erodes. Not because you're incapable, but because confidence feeds on action. When you don't move, doubt grows. The mind fills empty space with questions instead of answers. Winners break this loop early by choosing motion over perfection. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. You don't think your way into better decisions. You act your way into better information. Every step forward reveals what the next step should be. Planning can only take you so far. At some point, thinking becomes avoidance. Winners recognize that point and move immediately. Even small movement resets the system. The body engages, the mind follows. Fear hates momentum. It thrives in stillness. When you move, fear loses leverage. It doesn't disappear, but it gets quieter. Your focus shifts from imagined consequences to present execution. This is why movement is medicine. One email sent, one rep completed, one page written. These actions seem small, but they interrupt paralysis. Momentum begins to build, and with it, confidence returns. Imperfect action beats perfect planning every time. Perfect plans rarely survive reality. They shatter at the first obstacle. Imperfect action adapts. It learns. It evolves. Winners don't wait to be ready. They start before readiness arrives. Readiness is built through exposure, not contemplation. Every attempt sharpens skill. Every attempt builds tolerance for uncertainty. This is how competence forms. Most people wait for motivation. Winners create it through action. Motivation is a byproduct, not a requirement. When you move, your brain releases energy. Dopamine follows progress. Progress fuels motivation. The cycle reinforces itself. When you wait, the opposite happens. Energy drops. Doubt increases. the cycle collapses. Action is the switch that determines which cycle you enter. Speed matters more than certainty. Winners value speed of implementation because speed keeps energy high. Slow decisions invite doubt. Fast decisions build trust. Not every decision will be right, but indecision guarantees stagnation. Winners accept the cost of mistakes because they understand the cost of inaction is far greater. They'd rather correct course than stand still pretending to be strategic. Action bias doesn't mean recklessness. It means responsiveness. It means when something matters, you move. You don't over-intellectualize simple tasks. You don't inflate difficulty. You break things down and execute. Losers ask, what if it fails? Winners ask, what if I don't start? That question cuts through fear instantly. Momentum compounds just like discipline. One action makes the next easier. The hardest step is the first because it breaks inertia. Once movement starts, resistance drops. Winners design their lives to favor starting. Low barriers, clear next steps, no dramatic buildup. They make action inevitable instead of optional. The 5-second window is real. The moment you feel the impulse to act, there's a brief opening before the mind interferes. If you move within that window, action happens. If you hesitate, the mind talks you out of it. Winners trust the impulse aligned with their standards. They move before excuses organize. This simple habit changes everything. Stagnation isn't laziness. It's fear unmanaged. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of failing publicly. Fear of choosing wrong. Action reframes fear as feedback. You stop personalizing outcomes. You treat them as data. This emotional detachment allows consistency. You're no longer protecting ego. You're building skill. Winners focus on progress, not performance. They don't need to be impressive. They need to be consistent. This removes pressure. Pressure kills action. Progress invites it. When the goal is simply to move forward, resistance lowers. You stop demanding excellence and start demanding execution. Excellence emerges later as a side effect. The action bias builds identity fast. Each completed action says, I am someone who moves. That identity compounds. Soon, hesitation feels unnatural. Movement becomes default. You stop negotiating with yourself. You see something that needs doing and you do it. This is quiet power. This is reliability. There will be days when action feels heavy. Do it anyway. Not perfectly, not heroically, just enough to maintain momentum. Momentum is fragile but powerful. Protect it. Even minimal action keeps the engine warm. Winners never let momentum drop to zero. Zero is expensive to restart. As action becomes habit, discipline stabilizes. You stop relying on emotion. You operate from structure. This sets the stage for consistency. Because once movement is normal, the next challenge isn't starting, it's sustaining. And that's where disciplined systems take over next. Chapter 8. Discipline as Freedom. Most people think discipline is a cage, something restrictive, something that steals joy and replaces it with rules, pressure, and obligation. That belief keeps them running from the very thing that could save them. Because the truth is uncomfortable but clear. Discipline is not punishment. It is freedom, delayed. And the absence of discipline is not freedom at all. It is chaos that feels good briefly and costs you everything later. An undisciplined life feels open at first. You do what you want, when you want. You follow moods. You chase comfort. No rules, no structure, no pressure. But slowly, choice disappears. Energy drops. Options narrow. Regret grows quietly. Discipline works in reverse. It feels restrictive at the beginning. You say no, you hold standards, you follow through even when it's uncomfortable. But over time, discipline expands your choices. It builds capacity. It gives you control. And control is the highest form of freedom. Winners understand this trade early. They accept short-term restriction to earn long-term autonomy. They don't see discipline as force. They see it as alignment, a way of living that reduces friction instead of increasing it. When your actions are consistent, your mind calms down. You stop negotiating. You stop debating. Decision fatigue disappears. Discipline simplifies life. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation depends on how you feel. Discipline depends on who you are. That's why motivation fades and discipline lasts. Winners don't wake up asking if they feel like doing the work. They wake up knowing what gets done regardless. This reliability builds trust with yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence, focus, and peace. Non-negotiables are the backbone of discipline. They remove choice where choice causes weakness. When something is non-negotiable, it doesn't drain energy. It doesn't require debate. It happens. Brush your teeth, show up, train, execute your priority. These actions don't feel heroic, but they are powerful. They train the identity of someone who follows through. Over time, that identity becomes automatic. Most people overcomplicate discipline. They think it requires intensity. It doesn't. It requires clarity, clear standards, clear minimums, clear expectations. Discipline fails when rules are vague. It succeeds when rules are simple. Winners don't demand perfection. They demand consistency. Consistency beats intensity every time because it survives stress, boredom, and pressure. Discipline is self-respect in action. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce the belief that your word matters. Every time you break one, you weaken that belief. This is why inconsistency hurts emotionally. It's not the task you avoided, it's the trust you damaged. Winners protect that trust fiercely. They don't make promises lightly, and they don't break them casually. Structure doesn't kill creativity. It protects it. When the basics are handled automatically, mental space opens, focus sharpens, energy stabilizes, creativity thrives inside boundaries, chaos suffocates it. Winners don't leave their days open-ended. They design them intentionally. This isn't rigidity, it's strategy. Freedom comes from knowing the important things are already handled. Discipline also removes emotional volatility. When your actions don't depend on mood, mood loses power over you. You stop being controlled by how you feel. You act from standards instead. This creates emotional stability. You're not riding highs and lows. You're grounded, calm, predictable in your execution. That predictability becomes an advantage when others are thrown off by emotion. The disciplined life is not smaller, it's quieter, less noise, less regret, less self-conflict, more follow-through, more momentum, more earned confidence. Discipline creates a life where progress is normal, not accidental. Where wins don't surprise you because they're built daily. Winners use discipline to reduce cognitive load. Fewer decisions, fewer distractions, fewer excuses. This preserves energy for what matters. When discipline handles the basics, effort is reserved for high-impact work. This is why disciplined people appear to have more energy. They're not leaking it everywhere. There will be resistance at first. Discipline challenges comfort. Comfort fights back. The mind will negotiate. It will rationalize. It will exaggerate discomfort. Ignore it. Execute anyway. Discipline strengthens through repetition. What feels hard today becomes automatic tomorrow. The body adapts, the mind follows. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want, it's being able to do what matters when it matters. Discipline gives you that ability. It allows you to delay gratification without resentment, to choose long-term gain over short-term relief, to act in alignment with your values instead of impulses. As discipline stabilizes, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You become someone who does. Reliable, grounded, consistent. This identity changes how others respond to you and how you respond to yourself. You trust your execution. You trust your process. Once discipline becomes your baseline, work changes. You stop relying on effort alone. You begin refining how you work. Quality, focus, precision. Discipline creates the foundation, but mastery requires direction. And that's where elite work habits take over next. Chapter 9. The Winner's Work Ethic. Most people think hard work means long hours, late nights, constant motion, always looking busy. But busyness is cheap. Anyone can be busy. Winners are effective. They don't measure effort by exhaustion. They measure it by output. Real work ethic isn't about how long you work. It's about how deeply you engage with what matters. And that distinction separates those who move forward from those who stay tired and stuck. Performative busyness feels productive because it creates the appearance of effort. Emails sent, meetings attended, tasks checked off. But nothing meaningful changes. You're active without impact. Shallow work fills time but produces little value. Winners see through this illusion. They're not impressed by motion. They're obsessed with results. They ask one question relentlessly. Did this move the needle or just make me feel useful? Deep work is uncomfortable. It demands focus, silence, and sustained attention. It exposes gaps in skill and thinking. That's why most people avoid it. Shallow tasks provide quick relief. They offer instant completion without resistance. But relief isn't progress. Winners choose discomfort because they understand growth lives there. They carve out time to think, build, and create without interruption. This is where real value is produced. Quality always beats quantity in the long run. 1 hour of focused effort can outperform 10 hours of distraction. Winners protect their deep work windows aggressively. They eliminate interruptions. They silence notifications. They set clear objectives. During these sessions, they don't multitask. They commit fully. This level of engagement builds skill faster and produces work they're proud of. Pride in craftsmanship fuels motivation far more than external praise ever could. Noise is seductive. Endless information, opinions, updates, comparisons. It feels like staying informed, but it fragments focus. Winners filter ruthlessly. They consume less and create more. They understand attention is their most valuable asset. Wherever attention goes, energy follows. And wherever energy flows, results appear. Shallow consumption weakens output. Deep focus strengthens it. Winners work smarter and harder, but never blindly. They design their effort. They identify leverage points, small actions with outsized impact. They prioritize tasks that create momentum instead of maintenance. Busy work maintains the status quo. High-impact work changes trajectories. This awareness transforms how you spend your day. You stop filling time and start investing it. A strong work ethic is not about suffering. It's about responsibility. Responsibility to your potential. Responsibility to your standards. Responsibility to finish what you start. Winners don't romanticize grind for its own sake. They grind with direction. They rest with intention. They push when it matters and recover when it's wise. This balance preserves longevity. Craftsmanship matters. When you care about quality, work becomes meaningful. You stop rushing. You stop cutting corners. You aim to improve with each repetition. This mindset builds pride. Pride builds confidence. Confidence stabilizes effort. Winners respect their work because it reflects their identity. They don't produce carelessly because they don't live carelessly. Working with intention reduces burnout. Burnout often comes from meaningless effort. When you know why you're working and what you're building, energy returns. Purpose fuels endurance. Winners connect daily tasks to long-term vision. Even small actions feel significant when aligned with something bigger. This connection sustains effort when motivation fades. Distraction is the enemy of excellence. Every interruption resets focus and drains cognitive energy. Winners structure their environment to minimize distraction. They batch communication. They set boundaries. They protect solitude. This isn't isolation. It's respect for their craft. Focused people produce disproportionate results because their effort compounds instead of scattering. The winner's work ethic values completion. Starting is easy. Finishing is rare. Completion builds trust with yourself. It reinforces identity. Winners don't jump endlessly between projects. They finish, then they refine, then they improve. This cycle creates momentum. Incomplete work drains mental energy. Completed work frees it. Winners don't chase perfection. They chase excellence through iteration. They ship. They test. They adjust. Perfectionism hides fear, fear of judgment, fear of failure. Excellence embraces feedback. Winners aren't attached to ego, they're attached to improvement. This allows them to grow faster and recover quicker from mistakes. When setbacks arrive, shallow workers collapse. Deep workers adapt, because their confidence isn't tied to appearance, it's tied to skill. Skill can be rebuilt, appearance cannot. Winners handle setbacks by returning to fundamentals: focus, effort, craft. They don't spiral emotionally. They get precise. Precision restores control. Work ethic isn't about proving worth to others. It's about honoring commitments to yourself. When your effort aligns with your values, work becomes a form of self-respect. You show up because it matters. You care because it reflects who you are. This internal alignment makes effort sustainable. Winners review their work honestly. What worked, what didn't, what can improve. Reflection turns effort into wisdom. Wisdom sharpens future effort. This loop accelerates mastery. Without reflection, effort stagnates. With it, progress compounds. Elite work ethic is quiet. It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't announce struggle. It executes consistently, day after day. This consistency builds resilience. When obstacles appear, you don't panic. You've trained for difficulty through disciplined work. As your work ethic sharpens, setbacks lose their power. You trust your ability to respond, to rebuild, to adjust. Because your pride isn't in outcomes alone, it's in your process. And when the process is solid, recovery becomes inevitable. This foundation prepares you for adversity, because no matter how strong your systems are, challenges will come. The difference is how you respond. And that's where handling setbacks like a champion begins next. Chapter 10. Handling setbacks like a champion. Setbacks don't destroy people. The stories they tell themselves about setbacks do. The moment something goes wrong, a split-second decision is made. Not about what happened, but about what it means. Most people don't fail because they fall. They fail because they collapse emotionally after the fall. Winners don't avoid setbacks. They absorb them. They understand that resilience is not toughness, it's interpretation. Failure is information. Nothing more, nothing less. It tells you what worked, what didn't, and where adjustment is required. Losers treat failure as a verdict on their worth. Winners treat it as feedback on their strategy. That difference determines everything that follows. When failure becomes personal, emotions take over. When failure becomes data, control returns. Winners choose control every time. Emotional spirals are expensive. One setback triggers frustration. Frustration triggers self-doubt. Self-doubt triggers withdrawal. Before long, one mistake becomes an identity crisis. Winners interrupt this chain immediately. They don't suppress emotion, but they don't drown in it either. They feel it, acknowledge it, and move to analysis. Emotion is processed quickly. Strategy lasts longer. The first rule of resilience is separation. Separate who you are from what happened. You didn't fail as a person. A method failed, a decision missed, a variable changed. When identity stays intact, recovery accelerates. When identity is attacked, energy is wasted defending ego instead of solving problems. Winners protect identity fiercely because identity fuels future effort. Setbacks expose weak points. That's their value. They reveal gaps you couldn't see while things were smooth. Winners don't resent exposure. They welcome it. What's exposed can be trained. What's ignored becomes a future collapse. Every loss contains instructions. The only question is whether you're humble enough to read them. Most people want setbacks to hurt less. Winners want them to teach more. Pain fades. Lessons compound. When reflection replaces reaction, setbacks lose emotional power. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this asking of me?" That question shifts you from victim to operator instantly. Champions slow down after failure, not to sulk, but to assess. What was within my control? What wasn't? What stays? What changes? This process restores clarity. Clarity restores confidence. You're no longer overwhelmed because you have direction. Direction turns chaos into a plan. Recovery speed matters more than avoidance. Everyone gets hit. The difference is how long they stay down. Winners train fast recovery. They don't linger in disappointment. They return to fundamentals: sleep, movement, structure, action. These basics stabilize emotion and rebuild momentum. When momentum returns, confidence follows. Resilience is built long before setbacks arrive. It's built through discipline, identity, and self-trust. When you know you can rely on yourself, failure doesn't feel threatening. You trust your ability to respond. That trust creates calm under pressure. Calm allows intelligent decisions instead of emotional reactions. Losers seek reassurance after failure. Winners seek responsibility. Responsibility restores power. The moment you take ownership of what's adjustable, you regain agency. Agency eliminates helplessness. You may not control outcomes, but you always control response. That control is the core of resilience. Setbacks often arrive when growth accelerates. Resistance increases near expansion. Winners expect this. They don't interpret difficulty as a sign to stop. They interpret it as confirmation they're pushing limits. Comfort rarely produces resistance. Growth always does. When you expect friction, it stops surprising you. Emotional maturity is revealed in loss. How you speak to yourself, how quickly you stabilize, how you treat others. Winners don't lash out, they don't isolate, they maintain standards. This consistency under stress builds respect internally and externally. People trust those who don't unravel when challenged. Perspective matters. One setback doesn't erase progress. It highlights where progress must deepen. Winners zoom out. They measure trajectories, not moments. A bad day inside a strong system doesn't threaten the system. A weak system collapses under minor stress. Strength is revealed through stress. Failure handled well strengthens identity. You prove to yourself that you can endure discomfort without quitting. That proof compounds. The next setback feels lighter because you've been here before. Familiarity reduces fear. Experience replaces panic. This is how resilience becomes instinct. Winners don't dramatize loss. They don't rehearse it. They document it, then move forward, writing lessons down, adjusting routines, recommitting to standards. This turns setbacks into upgrades. You don't just recover, you improve. There will be moments when setbacks feel unfair, when effort wasn't rewarded, when timing betrayed you. Winners acknowledge the frustration, then release it. Bitterness drains energy. Acceptance restores it. You can't control fairness. You can control response. Response determines future position. The strongest competitors are forged through adversity, not because adversity is special, but because response to it is. Pressure reveals character. Winners use that revelation to refine themselves. They don't hide from discomfort. They study it. As setbacks lose their emotional grip, something changes. You stop fearing exposure. You stop avoiding challenge. You move with quiet confidence because you trust your recovery. This confidence expands beyond work and goals. It enters relationships, environment, influence. Winning is not solitary. No one sustains excellence alone. The next level of growth depends on who surrounds you. And now that your resilience is solid, it's time to examine the people, environments, and standards that either elevate you or quietly pull you backward. Chapter 11. Surrounding yourself with winners. You don't rise or fall alone. No matter how disciplined, focused, or resilient you become, the environment around you is always shaping you, quietly, constantly. The people you spend time with influence how you think, what you tolerate, and what feels normal. Most people underestimate this force. Winners don't. They understand that growth isn't just personal, it's environmental. You are not weak for being influenced. You are human. Energy transfers. Attitudes spread. Standards normalize. If you stay around people who complain, you begin justifying. If you stay around people who drift, you begin excusing. Not because you want to, but because familiarity lowers resistance. Over time, what once bothered you becomes acceptable. And what becomes acceptable eventually becomes who you are. Draining relationships rarely announce themselves as toxic. They feel comfortable, familiar, safe. They're built on shared history, not shared direction. Conversations revolve around problems, not progress. Excuses feel validated. Ambition feels awkward. Growth feels disruptive. Winners notice this tension early. They don't judge it. They acknowledge it. Because comfort that conflicts with growth is still a cost. Elevating relationships feel different. They stretch you. They challenge your standards. They make excuses uncomfortable. Progress feels expected. Accountability feels normal. These relationships don't always feel easy, but they feel honest. Winners seek these environments intentionally, not for validation, but for alignment. Because alignment accelerates growth faster than solo effort ever could. You are the average of the people you consistently engage with, not intellectually, behaviorally, emotionally. If the average around you avoids responsibility, discipline erodes. If the average around you values execution, execution becomes natural. Winners don't argue with this principle. They design around it. Auditing your social circle isn't about cutting people off dramatically. It's about clarity. Who drains energy? Who sharpens it? Who supports growth? Who subtly resists it? Awareness changes behavior. You may not leave every relationship, but you will change proximity, frequency, and influence. Distance doesn't always mean separation. Sometimes it means boundaries. Boundaries are not rejection. They are direction. When you raise standards, some relationships naturally shift. Less time, less access, less emotional availability. This is not cruelty. It's alignment. You can care about people without allowing them to dictate your trajectory. Winners learn this without guilt, because guilt is often the price of growth in environments that benefited from your stagnation. Choosing growth over familiarity feels uncomfortable at first. Familiarity feels safe because it's predictable. Growth feels risky because it demands change. Winners accept this discomfort. They don't seek permission to evolve. They understand that not everyone can follow where they're going. And that's okay. Growth doesn't require consensus. Winners are intentional about proximity. They spend more time with people who reflect the future they're building, not the past they're leaving. They listen more than they speak. They observe standards, how people handle pressure, how they talk about responsibility, how they respond to setbacks. Character reveals itself in these moments. You don't need many people. You need the right ones. One disciplined influence can outweigh 10 draining ones. Quality beats quantity socially, just like it does professionally. Winners curate their circles carefully, not out of arrogance, but out of respect for their energy and direction. Environment includes more than people. It includes spaces, routines, and inputs. Winners align all of it: where they work, what they consume, what conversations they tolerate. Everything either reinforces standards or erodes them. Neutral environments don't exist. They either build you or weaken you. Letting go of draining influence creates space. That space can feel empty at first. Silence replaces noise. This is normal. Growth requires space to breathe. Don't rush to fill it. Allow new standards to settle. New relationships will follow naturally when your behavior changes. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you embody. Winners don't look down on those who aren't growing. They simply refuse to be anchored by them. Compassion and boundaries can coexist. You can wish people well without staying stuck with them. This emotional maturity preserves relationships without sacrificing direction. As your circle improves, accountability increases. Excuses don't land the same. Drift gets noticed. This pressure is healthy. It sharpens behavior. It keeps standards high. Winners don't avoid this pressure. They welcome it. Because pressure reveals commitment. Surrounding yourself with winners doesn't mean everyone is perfect. It means everyone is committed. Committed to growth, to honesty, to effort. That commitment creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief creates action. Action compounds results. Eventually, something shifts. You stop trying to stay disciplined. The environment reinforces it. You stop forcing focus. It becomes normal. This is the hidden advantage of aligned surroundings. Growth stops feeling lonely. Progress feels supported. As your environment elevates, Responsibility expands. You're no longer just receiving influence, you're becoming one. And that leads to the next evolution. Because real winners don't just surround themselves with strength, they contribute it. And that's where winning through service begins next. Chapter 12. Winning through service. At some point, winning stops being about you alone. If success remains self-centered, it collapses under its own weight. It becomes fragile, empty, and exhausting to maintain. Winners understand this shift. They realize that lasting success is not taken. It's given. It's created through value, through contribution, through service that elevates more than just the self. Most people approach life transactionally. What can I get? What's in it for me? How does this benefit my position? These questions seem practical, but they shrink perspective. They turn relationships into calculations. Trust becomes conditional. Influence becomes shallow. Winners operate differently. They ask, how can I add value here? How can I help? How can I contribute meaningfully? That mindset changes everything. Service is not weakness, it's leverage. When you consistently create value, you become valuable. People trust those who help without keeping score. They remember those who solve problems quietly. Winners understand that influence is earned through usefulness, not self-promotion. When you make others better, opportunities find you without chasing them. Transactional relationships are fragile. The moment value stops flowing one way, the connection breaks. Contribution-based relationships endure. They're built on trust, respect, and mutual growth. Winners invest in people without immediate return, not blindly, intentionally. They understand that value compounds socially, just like discipline compounds personally. Service sharpens character. It pulls you out of self-absorption. It trains empathy, patience, and perspective. When you focus on contribution, ego loses its grip. Comparison fades. You stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring your impact. This shift stabilizes confidence. You're no longer threatened by others' success because you're busy creating value of your own. Winning through service doesn't mean overextending yourself. It means being intentional, giving where it matters, helping where you're capable. Winners don't try to save everyone. They serve where alignment exists, where effort is respected, where growth is mutual. Service without boundaries becomes resentment. Service with standards becomes leadership. True service solves real problems. It listens first. It observes carefully. It acts precisely. Winners don't offer advice to feel important. They offer solutions to be useful. This builds credibility. Over time, people seek your input. Your presence carries weight because it's associated with progress. Service also reinforces mastery. Teaching clarifies understanding. Helping others exposes gaps in your own thinking. Explaining concepts forces precision. This feedback loop deepens skill. Winners grow faster because they contribute what they're learning. Knowledge shared becomes knowledge strengthened. In contribution-based environments, competition transforms. It becomes collaborative. Everyone raises standards. Everyone benefits. Winners thrive here because their mindset isn't threatened by others' growth. Scarcity thinking disappears. Abundance replaces it. When value flows freely, opportunities expand instead of shrinking. Service builds trust faster than achievement. Titles impress briefly. Help builds loyalty. When people know you care about outcomes beyond yourself, they invest emotionally. That investment creates resilience in relationships. When challenges arise, trust holds. This stability sustains success long term. Most people wait until they make it to give back. Winners give while building. They integrate service into the process. This keeps them grounded. It prevents entitlement. It reminds them why effort matters. Purpose deepens when it's shared. Contribution also protects against burnout. Self-centered pursuit eventually feels hollow. Shared progress feels meaningful. When your work helps others, energy renews itself. Purpose fuels endurance. This is why service sustains wins. It connects effort to something larger than ego. Winners look for ways to add value daily. Small acts, honest feedback, support, encouragement. These actions seem minor, but they compound relational capital. Over time, you become known as someone who elevates rooms instead of consuming them. That reputation opens doors silently. Service doesn't require perfection. It requires presence, showing up, listening, acting with integrity. Winners don't wait until they're flawless. They serve with what they have. Growth happens alongside contribution. As your influence grows, responsibility increases. Service keeps that responsibility grounded. It reminds you that success is stewardship. What you build can help or harm. Winners choose to help. That choice sustains respect internally and externally. When success is rooted in service, setbacks lose sting. You're not defined solely by outcomes. You're defined by impact. This broader identity creates resilience. You're part of something ongoing, not a single result. Eventually, you realize something profound. Winning isn't about standing above others. It's about lifting standards around you. When you rise, others rise with you. That's sustainable power. This shift completes the transition from self-mastery to shared elevation. But to sustain this level, reflection becomes essential. Growth must be reviewed, refined, and reinforced daily. And that's where the discipline of the daily review begins next. Chapter 13. The Daily Review System. Most people live on autopilot. Days happen to them, not through them. They wake up, react, push, collapse, and repeat. No pause, no reflection, no extraction of meaning. And then they wonder why weeks disappear, why progress feels random, why effort doesn't seem to compound. Winners don't live this way. They slow the day down at the end so the future can speed up. Reflection is not passive. It's a performance tool. A day without review is a day wasted twice, once in action and once in learning. You may have worked hard, but if you didn't extract lessons, reinforce standards, and adjust direction, the value leaks away. Mindless days blur together. Intentional days stack. The difference isn't effort, it's awareness. Winners don't just do the work, they study the work. The daily review is where control is reclaimed, not in the chaos of the day, but in the quiet after. This is where emotion settles and clarity returns. You stop reacting and start observing. Observation creates distance. Distance creates objectivity. Objectivity creates growth. Without this pause, patterns repeat unchecked. With it, progress accelerates. Most people avoid reflection because they fear judgment. They don't want to confront mistakes. They don't want to see gaps. Winners see it differently. They understand that avoidance protects ego but costs improvement. Reflection isn't about self-criticism. It's about self-respect. You review because you care enough to get better. The first purpose of the daily review is reinforcement. What went right today? What did you execute well? What standard did you uphold? These wins don't need applause. They need recognition. When you acknowledge them, you strengthen identity. You tell your mind, This behavior matters. This is who I am. Identity grows through repetition and recognition. The second purpose is learning. What didn't work? Where did energy leak? What decision could improve next time? This isn't blame, it's data. Winners treat mistakes like engineers treat faults: neutral, useful, necessary. Emotion fades, insight remains. Each lesson extracted saves future time, effort, and frustration. The third purpose is course correction. Tomorrow is shaped tonight. Small adjustments compound faster than dramatic resets. Winners don't wait for breakdowns to change direction. They make micro-corrections daily. Slight shifts in focus, slight improvements in structure. Over time, these small changes create massive divergence from average trajectories. Reflection calms the nervous system. Unprocessed days linger mentally. Thoughts loop. Stress carries into sleep. The review clears the mind. It closes open loops. It gives the brain permission to rest. Calm is not laziness. Calm is readiness. When the mind is clear, energy restores itself naturally. Consistency is built in reflection. When you review daily, you stop drifting. You stay aligned. You notice early when standards slip. You correct before damage accumulates. This is why winners feel stable. They're not perfect. They're responsive. They don't allow small lapses to turn into long regressions. The daily review doesn't need to be long. It needs to be honest. 5 to 10 minutes is enough. What mattered today? What moved me forward? What held me back? What will I do better tomorrow? Simple questions. Powerful answers. Complexity dilutes effectiveness. Clarity amplifies it. Gratitude belongs in the review, not as sentiment, but as grounding. Acknowledge what worked, what you had, what supported you. Gratitude stabilizes emotion. It reminds you that progress is possible. It balances ambition with perspective. Winners aren't entitled, they're appreciative. That balance sustains momentum without burnout. Reflection turns effort into wisdom. Without it, effort stays raw. You repeat the same mistakes harder. With reflection, effort becomes refined. You learn faster, you adapt quicker, you grow deliberately. This is the difference between experience and expertise. Time alone doesn't create mastery. Reflection does. The daily review strengthens self-trust. When you consistently examine and adjust your behavior, you become reliable to yourself. You don't ignore problems. You don't lie internally. You address reality. That honesty builds confidence. You trust yourself because you know you're paying attention. Winners don't judge days as good or bad. They judge them as informative. Every day teaches something, even the messy ones, especially the messy ones. When you adopt this mindset, pressure drops. You're no longer chasing perfect days. You're building informed ones. Reflection also reinforces ownership. No blaming circumstances, no outsourcing responsibility. Just clear assessment. What was within my control? What wasn't? What will I adjust? Ownership restores power. Power restores direction. Direction restores peace. As the daily review becomes habit, something shifts. Time slows down subjectively. Days feel fuller. Progress feels tangible. You stop wondering where the week went because you've been present with it. This presence compounds into clarity about who you're becoming. The review becomes a mirror. It shows you your trajectory, not through emotion, but through evidence. Patterns emerge, strengths sharpen, weaknesses shrink. You don't guess who you are, you observe it. This is how consistency becomes identity, not through intensity, but through attention. You show up, you act, you review, you adjust, day after day. This rhythm creates control without force. With reflection in place, growth becomes intentional. Nothing is left to chance. And now, with clarity established, it's time to test everything you've built, to compress growth into focused execution. The next step is a challenge, one that turns reflection into transformation. Chapter 14. The 30-Day Winners Challenge. Knowledge changes nothing without execution. Insight without action is entertainment. You've learned how winners think, move, speak, and recover. Now comes the moment that separates consumers from builders, the moment you stop preparing and start embodying. Transformation doesn't happen gradually through endless reflection. It happens when commitment replaces drift. The next 30 days are not about learning more. They're about becoming different. Most people drift through time. Days blend together. Intentions reset every Monday and fade by Wednesday. Nothing anchors behavior. The challenge exists to interrupt drift, to create a container strong enough to force consistency. 30 days is short enough to commit fully and long enough to rewire identity. This is not a test of motivation. It's a test of follow-through. The challenge is simple but demanding. Every day has structure. Every week has a focus. No negotiation. No excuses. The goal is not perfection. The goal is completion. When you finish what you commit to daily, trust with yourself rebuilds fast. That trust is the real prize. Everything else follows. Week 1 is the foundation. Mindset first. You strip away noise and clarify standards. Each day begins with intention and ends with review. You monitor thoughts. You correct language. You choose discipline over emotion repeatedly. This week feels uncomfortable because awareness exposes patterns you've ignored. That discomfort is progress. You're no longer unconscious. You're in control. Week 2 is morning mastery. You lock in the first hour. Same wake time, same sequence. Hydration, movement, focus, planning. You don't wait to feel ready. You execute. By the end of the week, mornings feel calmer, more deliberate. You notice the ripple effect. Focus improves. Reactivity drops. The day feels shorter because energy is preserved instead of scattered. Week 3 accelerates action. You apply the action bias relentlessly. No overthinking, no stalling. You identify priorities and move immediately. Momentum builds quickly. Confidence rises because evidence accumulates. You stop asking if you can do hard things. You prove it daily. This week feels powerful because results begin to appear. Not dramatic, real. Week 4 integrates identity. You stop thinking in tasks and start thinking in standards. Discipline becomes default. Review becomes habit. Service becomes intentional. You notice how you show up differently in conversations, work, and decisions. You're no longer trying to win. You're operating like someone who does. The challenge works because it removes choice. Choice drains energy. Structure restores it. You don't decide whether to act. You decide to act, then follow structure. This frees the mind. Less debate, less friction, more execution. Over 30 days, this rhythm becomes familiar. Familiarity becomes identity. There will be resistance. Days when motivation disappears. Days when excuses sound convincing. Expect them. Don't dramatize them. Execute anyway. The challenge isn't about feeling strong. It's about acting aligned. Strength is built afterward. Every time you act despite resistance, identity shifts. You don't need to tell anyone you're doing this challenge. Quiet execution is more powerful than public intention. Let results speak later. Focus on showing up today, then tomorrow. Momentum compounds quickly when attention stays narrow. Track completion, not emotion. Did you do what you committed to? That's the only metric that matters. Feelings fluctuate. Execution counts. By the end of 30 days, you'll notice something undeniable. You trust yourself more. Decisions feel lighter. Discipline feels natural. You don't hype yourself anymore. You rely on structure. This challenge is not an end. It's a reset, a recalibration, a proof of concept. You'll see clearly what works and what doesn't. You'll experience the cost of discipline and the cost of avoidance. One builds you, one drains you. The contrast becomes undeniable. 30 days from now, you won't feel like a new person. You'll feel like yourself, finally aligned. That's the real transformation. Alignment between intention and action, thought and behavior, identity and execution. When the challenge ends, the work doesn't stop. It simplifies. You carry forward what matters. You discard what doesn't. Winning becomes quieter, more internal, more consistent. You're no longer learning about winning. You're practicing it daily, and that changes how you see everything. There's one final step, one final reminder, because the goal was never the challenge. The goal was the life that follows. You're built to win. Look back for a moment and recognize what has changed, not in the world, but in you. You are no longer drifting through days hoping discipline appears. You understand now that winning was never missing. It was waiting for structure. The old version of you reacted, rushed, and negotiated with comfort. This version pauses, chooses, and moves with intention. That shift is everything. It didn't come from luck or motivation. It came from daily decisions repeated until identity changed. You didn't become perfect. You became consistent. And consistency is power. It proves progress is built, not discovered through deliberate effort. The difference between who you were and who you are becoming is not talent. It is ownership. You stopped outsourcing responsibility to mood, timing, and circumstance. You learned to lead yourself before asking life to cooperate. Discipline stopped feeling like force and started feeling like self-respect. Focus replaced noise. Standards replaced excuses. You no longer wait to feel ready. You move, then adjust. This is maturity. This is emotional strength. It allows you to stay steady when conditions shift and calm when pressure rises. That steadiness compounds into trust you carry everywhere without seeking permission externally or validation anywhere. Winning no longer feels dramatic. It feels quiet and dependable. You don't announce effort. You execute. You don't chase applause. You chase alignment. The chaos that once drained you now feels obvious and avoidable. You see distraction for what it is, not temptation, but theft. Each day you win small, invisible battles that most people ignore. These wins don't impress crowds, but they compound into something rare: self-trust. And self-trust changes how you walk through every room. It alters posture, tone, patience, and decision-making under pressure without explanation or defense required, because results eventually speak louder later. The old you needed constant reassurance, proof from others, signs you were on the right path. Now proof comes from execution, from promises kept in silence. You no longer measure yourself by comparison. You measure by standards. That removes jealousy and restores focus. When others accelerate, you don't panic. When others drift, you don't judge. You stay committed to your process. Process is what carried you here. Process is what will carry you forward. It scales with pressure, adapts to change, and survives adversity because it is built on principles, not moods or fleeting emotional states. that constantly fluctuate daily. You have learned that winning is not loud dominance over others. It is quiet mastery over self. You govern mornings. You manage energy. You act without hesitation. You recover without collapse. You choose people and environments that sharpen you. You give value instead of chasing it. These behaviors are no longer ideas. They are habits. Habits form identity. Identity shapes destiny. This is not philosophy anymore. It is lived experience reinforced daily. Evidence accumulates through repetition, making progress undeniable over time, even when growth feels slow internally and unnoticed by the external world, until results eventually surface with clarity intact. There will still be hard days. Discipline does not eliminate difficulty. It equips you to handle it. When pressure arrives, you don't ask if you can endure. You already know. You've proven it. That proof quiets fear. It keeps emotion from hijacking direction. You stay present. You stay deliberate. Hard days no longer threaten identity. They strengthen it. Each challenge becomes confirmation that you are built for responsibility earned through consistent execution under pressure and uncertainty, rather than luck or temporary motivation that fades when conditions become uncomfortable, or when results delay unexpectedly, testing patience and resolve over time consistently. You no longer need constant motivation because discipline carries you forward. You don't rely on intensity spikes. You rely on rhythm. Rhythm stabilizes life. It smooths emotional extremes and preserves energy. This steadiness allows long horizons. You think in years, not days. You invest in habits that pay later. While others burn out chasing speed, you move steadily and arrive stronger. This patience is not passive. It is strategic restraint, guided by clarity. It protects progress from impulsive decisions and emotional overreaction that often sabotage long-term growth when discipline temporarily feels inconvenient or unrewarded in the moment by design. Winning now feels internal before it ever becomes visible. You feel grounded when others rush. You stay focused when others scatter. This doesn't make you superior. It makes you responsible. Responsibility is the price of freedom. You pay it daily through standards upheld without supervision. That payment compounds into choice. Choice over reaction. Choice over distraction. Choice over comfort. This is the freedom discipline promised from the beginning. Not instant relief, but lasting control over direction earned through patience, repetition, and self-leadership applied consistently, regardless of mood or temporary emotional resistance that tries to negotiate standards downward over time. The world will continue to be noisy. Distraction will grow louder. Comfort will become more convenient. Most people will drift further from themselves chasing ease. You won't. You've learned how to create silence internally, how to return to structure when chaos rises, how to act without permission. These skills are timeless. They don't expire with trends. They compound across decades. They make you dangerous in the best possible way, because you are self-directed, disciplined, and emotionally grounded in environments designed to fragment attention and reward constant reactivity over thoughtful, consistent execution that builds lasting value without spectacle or noise. You don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Proof lives in how you move daily, in how you begin mornings, in how you manage energy, in how you speak to yourself under pressure, in how you respond to setbacks. These patterns define you now. Winning is not a destination ahead. It is a way of operating, a standard you carry into every room, conversation, and decision. This standard simplifies choices and stabilizes identity across seasons of success and challenge without dramatic swings in self-worth based on outcomes alone that inevitably fluctuate over long timelines for everyone without exception. From here, mastery becomes a daily choice, not a distant goal. You wake up and recommit. You act, you review, you adjust. This loop sustains growth. There is no finish line, only refinement. That truth is freeing. It removes pressure to arrive and replaces it with permission to build. Day by day, quietly, relentlessly, with intention and self-respect guiding every step forward. This rhythm becomes lifestyle rather than effort, sustained through discipline rather than motivation, which inevitably fades under pressure when novelty disappears and responsibility remains demanding follow-through daily, without constant emotional reward or external validation required anymore. You are built to win because you are built to adapt, to choose, to endure. The skills you've developed here extend beyond goals. They shape how you handle life, relationships, pressure, uncertainty. You are no longer reacting to circumstances. You are responding with clarity. This doesn't guarantee ease. It guarantees agency. And agency is the foundation of a life you respect because it aligns effort, values, and long-term direction without sacrificing integrity for speed or comfort for momentary relief that eventually erodes self-trust and clarity over time. Through repeated compromise, you now refuse to participate in again, consciously. Winning every day does not mean every day feels victorious. It means every day moves you forward. That is the promise. That is the standard. Carry it lightly, but consistently. Return to it when distracted. Recommit when you slip. This is lifelong work, and it is worthy work. You are built to win, not once but daily, through mastery of self, choice, and disciplined execution, earned quietly through focus, consistency, and unwavering personal standards applied regardless of attention or recognition from a distracted and noisy world that rewards spectacle over substance and speed over durability. You choose differently, starting now,